The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the highway as Tiana Jackson merged into the right lane. Her back ached from sitting too long at her desk, and the baby inside her kicked as if sharing her discomfort. 8 months pregnant and still working full days at the FBI field office wasn't ideal. But Tiana had cases to close before her maternity leave. She adjusted the air conditioning vent, directing the cool air toward her face. The summer heat was unforgiving, especially in her condition. Her wedding ring felt tight on her swollen finger as she gripped the steering wheel. Just 20 more minutes and she'd be home, able to kick off her shoes and finally relax. The flash of blue and red lights in her rearview mirror broke her daydream of a cool shower and comfortable couch. Tiana checked her speedometer. She'd been going exactly the speed limit. Maybe it was her taillight. She'd been meaning to get it fixed but hadn't found the time. With a tired sigh, she signaled and pulled over to the shoulder, making sure to stop in a visible spot. The police cruiser parked about 15 feet behind her. Tiana did what she always did when pulled over, what she taught civilians to do in community outreach programs. She turned off the engine, lowered her window halfway, placed her hands on the steering wheel, and waited. Through her side mirror, she watched the officer exit his vehicle. Something about his posture made her stomach tighten, and it wasn't the baby this time. His hand hovered near his holster as he approached, his face set in a hard expression. "License and registration," the officer demanded without greeting or explanation. His nameplate read Reynolds. His eyes darted around her car interior as if expecting to find something. "Good afternoon, Officer Reynolds," Tiana replied, her voice professionally calm. "May I ask why you pulled me over?" The officer's jaw tightened. "You were driving erratically. License and registration now." Tiana knew she hadn't been driving erratically. She'd been extra careful because of her pregnancy, but arguing wouldn't help. "I'm going to reach for my purse to get my license. It's in the passenger seat." When she moved her right hand from the wheel, Officer Reynolds tensed visibly. "Slowly," he warned. The intensity of his reaction seemed excessive. Tiana had been pulled over before, everyone had, but something felt different this time. As her fingers touched her purse, she glanced up at the officer again. His eyes weren't on her hands, but on her face, then her pregnant belly, then back to her face with a flash of something that looked like suspicion. "I have my license here," she said, keeping her movements deliberate. "My registration is in the glove compartment." "Get the license first," Officer Reynolds instructed, his tone sharp. "Then we'll deal with the registration." Tiana pulled out her driver's license and handed it to him. "Officer, I'm just wondering what kind of erratic driving you observed." "I've been very careful." Instead of answering, he studied her license with narrowed eyes. "This address current?" "Yes, sir. I've lived there for 3 years. And is this your car?" "Yes, it's registered in my name." "Wait here." He returned to his patrol car, taking her license with him. Tiana breathed deeply, trying to calm herself. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if sensing her rising blood pressure. She reached for her phone, tempted to text her husband or maybe her supervisor, but decided against it. No need to worry them yet. Through her mirrors, she could see Officer Reynolds in his car speaking into his radio. Something didn't feel right. A simple traffic stop shouldn't take this long or feel this tense. She'd been part of enough traffic stops from the other side to know. After nearly 10 minutes, Officer Reynolds returned, his face unreadable. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." The request startled her. "May I ask why, officer?" "I'm 8 months pregnant, and getting in and out is difficult." His expression hardened. "Step out of the vehicle now. Am I under arrest?" Tiana asked, her FBI training kicking in. "Or being detained?" "You're being difficult, and that makes me suspicious," Reynolds replied. "I need you to step out so I can make sure everything's in order." "Officer Reynolds," she said, keeping her voice steady, "I'm simply asking for clarification. I've provided my license. I'm happy to show you my registration, but I'm not comfortable exiting my vehicle without understanding why." The officer's hand returned to rest on his holster, not grabbing it, but making the gesture obvious. "Where are you coming from right now?" The sudden change in questioning threw her. "I'm coming from work. Heading home." "Work where?" His tone suggested he didn't believe her. "Downtown at the Federal Building." A slight smirk crossed his face. "The Federal Building, right? And what do you do there?" Tiana hesitated. She didn't typically advertise that she was FBI, especially not in traffic stops. There was professional courtesy between agencies, yes, but she'd seen too many colleagues use their badges to get out of speeding tickets. She believed in accountability. "I work for the government," she said simply. Officer Reynolds let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "The government, sure." He glanced at her car, a modest sedan with no government plates or markings. "Let me see your registration and proof of insurance." "They're in my glove compartment. I'm going to reach over now to get them." "Keep your movements where I can see them," he warned. Tiana leaned carefully, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward. She opened the glove compartment and removed the registration and insurance card, handing them to the officer. He examined the documents with the same suspicion he'd shown her license. "You said you're coming from work?" "At 6:30 on a Friday?" "Yes, I had reports to finish." "Reports," he repeated flatly. "For the government." The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Tiana shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The situation was becoming increasingly frustrating. She'd never experienced this level of skepticism in a routine traffic stop before, and she couldn't help wondering why this officer seemed so determined to find something wrong. "Officer Reynolds," she said, her patience wearing thin. "I still don't understand why you pulled me over. You said I was driving erratically, but I wasn't speeding or breaking any traffic laws that I'm aware of." "I observed your vehicle swerving between lanes," he stated, though Tiana knew that wasn't true. "And now your attitude is making me wonder if there's something you're hiding." "I'm not hiding anything," she replied evenly. "I'm just trying to understand the situation." Officer Reynolds handed back her documents. "Wait here." He returned to his patrol car again. Tiana watched him in her mirror. He was on his radio again, and then she saw him typing on his computer. She checked the time. Nearly 15 minutes had passed since she'd been pulled over. A routine traffic stop shouldn't take this long. When he approached again, his demeanor had shifted subtly. There was a new tension in his posture. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your vehicle." Tiana blinked in surprise. "Search my vehicle? On what grounds?" "I have reason to believe there may be contraband." "What reason?" Tiana challenged, her professional training overtaking her desire to just get home. "Officer Reynolds, I do not consent to a search of my vehicle. You pulled me over claiming erratic driving, which I dispute, and now you want to search my car without probable cause or a warrant." The officer's face hardened. "Step out of the car now." In that moment, Tiana made a decision. She'd been trying to handle this situation as a regular citizen, but it had gone too far. Slowly, she reached for her purse again. "I said, get out of the car." Officer Reynolds raised his voice, his hand now firmly on his weapon. "Officer, I'm reaching for my credentials," Tiana said clearly, making direct eye contact. "I'm a federal agent." The look on Reynolds' face shifted from anger to confusion as she carefully extracted her FBI badge and ID. She held it up, where he could clearly see it. "I'm Special Agent Tiana Jackson with the Federal Bureau of Investigation," she stated formally. "Now, would you please explain why you pulled me over and why you're requesting to search my vehicle without probable cause?" Officer Reynolds' hand dropped from his holster. In the distance, Tiana could hear another siren approaching. Reynolds had called for backup, and now everything was about to get more complicated than either of them had planned for their Friday evening. The second police car pulled up, lights flashing, but siren now silent. Tiana kept her FBI credentials visible, watching as Officer Reynolds' entire demeanor changed. His confident stance faltered, and he took half a step back from her window. "FBI?" he repeated, his voice pitched slightly higher than before. He leaned in to examine her credentials more carefully, as if expecting them to be fake. "You didn't mention that." "I wasn't aware I needed to announce my profession during a traffic stop," Tiana replied evenly. "Most citizens don't." A second officer approached from the newly arrived patrol car. He was older, with gray at his temples and lieutenant stripes on his uniform. His nameplate read Garcia. "What's the situation here, Reynolds?" Lieutenant Garcia asked, his eyes moving from Reynolds to Tiana, then noticing her pregnant belly and the FBI badge in her hand. Reynolds hesitated. "Possible traffic violation. The driver was—" He trailed off, seeming unsure how to continue. Lieutenant Garcia nodded to Tiana. "Good evening, ma'am. May I see your credentials as well?" Tiana handed them over, noting the professionalism in Garcia's approach, the stark contrast to Reynolds' aggressive stance minutes earlier. Garcia examined her ID carefully, then handed it back with a respectful nod. Agent Jackson, I believe we met at the Joint Task Force briefing last month, the human trafficking operation. Tiana studied his face, recognition dawning. Yes, Lieutenant. You were coordinating with Agent Washington. That's right. Garcia turned to Reynolds. Officer, a word, please? The two moved a few paces away, but Tiana could still hear fragments of their conversation. Garcia's tone was low but intense. Words like protocol and no cause reached her ears. Reynolds' posture grew defensive, his hands gesturing as he tried to explain his actions. Tiana used the moment to text her husband. Pulled over. Everything fine. Might be late. No need to worry him with details yet. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Tiana shifted uncomfortably, placing a hand on her belly. 8 months pregnant, sitting in a hot car at the side of the road after a full day's work wasn't ideal. She checked the time. Nearly 30 minutes had passed since she'd been pulled over. Lieutenant Garcia returned alone. Agent Jackson, I apologize for the inconvenience. You're free to go. Just like that? Tiana asked, surprised by the sudden dismissal after Reynolds' escalation. What about the alleged erratic driving? Garcia's expression was carefully neutral. Officer Reynolds may have been mistaken in his assessment. May have been? Tiana repeated. Lieutenant, he was about to search my vehicle without cause or consent. If I hadn't been a federal agent, I understand your concern, Garcia interrupted. Rest assured, we'll address this internally. Tiana looked past Garcia to where Reynolds stood by his patrol car, arms crossed, watching them. His face showed no remorse, only frustration at being challenged. I'd like the incident report number, Tiana said firmly. And Officer Reynolds' badge number. Garcia's professional smile faltered slightly. Agent Jackson, I can handle this. There's no need to escalate the situation. With all due respect, Lieutenant, this situation was escalated the moment I was pulled over without cause. Tiana met his gaze steadily. Badge number and incident report, please. After a moment's hesitation, Garcia provided the information, which Tiana carefully noted in her phone. As she finished, a third police car pulled up. What now? She muttered. The door opened and a man in a dress shirt and tie stepped out. From his bearing and the respectful nods from both officers, Tiana guessed he was a higher-ranking officer, possibly a captain. Garcia walked over to meet him, and they spoke briefly before approaching her car together. Agent Jackson, I'm Captain Rivera, the man introduced himself. I understand there's been some confusion here. That's one way to put it, Tiana replied. Captain Rivera's expression was apologetic but guarded. I'd like to resolve this situation as smoothly as possible. If you could tell me your version of events? Tiana recounted the stop in detail. Reynolds' immediate hostility, his false claim about erratic driving, his escalating demands, and his attempt to search her car without cause. Rivera listened without interrupting, then asked, And at what point did you identify yourself as FBI? Only when he demanded to search my vehicle, Tiana explained. I shouldn't have needed to. Any citizen has the right to refuse an unwarranted search. Of course, Rivera agreed smoothly. But you must understand from an officer's perspective, from a law enforcement perspective, Tiana cut in, her patience wearing thin. I understand the challenges of the job better than most. What I don't understand is profiling and intimidation tactics. The word profiling hung in the air. No one spoke for a moment. That's a serious accusation, Rivera finally said. I'm aware. Tiana held his gaze, which is why I'll be filing a formal complaint. Reynolds, who had been standing back, stepped forward. You can't just... Officer. Rivera silenced him with a sharp gesture. He turned back to Tiana. Agent Jackson, I hope we can handle this professionally between our departments. I intend to be thoroughly professional, Tiana assured him, which is why I'll follow proper procedures rather than letting this go. Rivera nodded slowly, seeming to accept that she wouldn't be dissuaded. In that case, we'll need your statement. Would you prefer to give it now, or come to the station tomorrow? Tiana glanced at her watch. Her back ached, her feet were swollen, and the baby was restless. I'll come to the station tomorrow morning. Right now, I need to get home. Of course, Rivera handed her his card. Ask for me when you arrive. As Tiana prepared to leave, she noticed Reynolds watching her, his expression a mixture of anger and something else. Fear, perhaps. He knew she had the power to make trouble for him, and he wasn't used to his targets having that kind of leverage. Am I free to go? She asked Rivera, Yes, of course. Drive safely, Agent Jackson. As she pulled away, Tiana watched the 3 police vehicles in her rearview mirror. The adrenaline that had kept her focused during the confrontation began to fade, and her hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. The full weight of what had happened, what could have happened, settled on her shoulders. If she hadn't been FBI, how would that encounter have ended? If she'd been just another black woman driving home, pregnant and tired from work, would she have been searched? Arrested, worse? The question circled in her mind as she drove the remaining distance home. By the time she pulled into her driveway, she'd made a decision. This wasn't something she could let slide, not just for herself, but for everyone who didn't have a badge to protect them. Inside, she found her husband Keith in the kitchen, preparing dinner. He looked up with a smile that quickly faded when he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. "You said everything was fine." "I didn't want you to worry," Tiana said, sinking into a kitchen chair. "I got pulled over on the way home." "And?" Keith prompted, coming to sit across from her. As a high school teacher, he had his own experiences with profiling, which was why concern now creased his forehead. "And I think I need to file a complaint," Tiana said. She described the encounter in detail, watching Keith's expression darken. "You could have called me," he said when she finished. "I handled it," Tiana replied. "But I keep thinking about what happens to people who don't have FBI credentials to pull out." Keith reached across the table to take her hand. "So what are you going to do?" Tiana squared her shoulders. "I'm going to the station tomorrow to file a formal complaint. Then I'm going to follow up with internal affairs, and then I'm going to track that complaint every step of the way until someone takes it seriously." "They'll fight back," Keith warned. "Thin blue line and all that." "Let them," Tiana said, a determined edge to her voice. "I've spent my career fighting for justice. I'm not about to stop now just because it's gotten personal." Her phone buzzed with a text. It was from her supervisor, Director Chen. "Need you in early tomorrow." "New development in the Wilson case," Tiana sighed. The Wilson case involved corruption within local government. Complicated, sensitive, and exactly the kind of work she'd have to pause if she pursued this complaint against Officer Reynolds. "Something wrong?" Keith asked. Tiana shook her head. "Just work. Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." She squeezed his hand. "Right now I'm home, I'm safe, and I'm hungry. Let's eat." But as they moved through their evening routine, Tiana's mind kept returning to those tense moments by the roadside. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations and hard choices. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the baby shift beneath her palm. "I'm going to make sure your world is better," she whispered, a promise to her unborn child and to herself. The police station buzzed with morning activity as Tiana walked through the front doors. She had dressed carefully in a dark blazer over a simple maternity dress, her FBI badge clipped to her belt, visible but not flashy. It was a delicate balance, presenting herself as both a professional and someone who deserved to be taken seriously. The desk sergeant looked up as she approached. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Captain Rivera," Tiana said, keeping her voice neutral. "He's expecting me. Your name?" "Special Agent Tiana Jackson, FBI." She showed her credentials. The sergeant's eyebrows rose slightly. He picked up his phone, had a brief conversation, then nodded to Tiana. "He'll be right out. You can have a seat if you'd like." His eyes flicked to her pregnant belly. "I'll stand. Thanks." After yesterday's long sit in her car, Tiana preferred to stretch her legs while she could. A few minutes later, Captain Rivera emerged from a hallway door. He wore the same professional smile he'd had yesterday, though it seemed more strained in the fluorescent lighting of the station. "Agent Jackson, thank you for coming in." He extended his hand, which Tiana shook firmly. "Would you follow me to my office?" As they walked through the bullpen, Tiana felt eyes on her. Most officers quickly looked away when she met their gaze, but a few stared openly. Near the back wall, Officer Reynolds sat at a desk, his face darkening when he spotted her. He leaned over to say something to a colleague, who glanced in her direction and smirked. Rivera's office was small but neat, with commendations on the walls and family photos on his desk. He gestured for Tiana to sit in one of 2 chairs facing his desk. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "No, thank you," Tiana replied. "I'd like to get straight to the complaint process." Rivera nodded, his smile fading into a more serious expression. Before we begin, I want you to know that I've reviewed the preliminary report from both officers, as well as the dash cam footage. This caught Tiana's attention. And there are discrepancies between Officer Reynolds' account and what the footage shows. Rivera cleared his throat, specifically regarding your driving before the stop. There was nothing wrong with my driving, Tiana stated. The footage supports that, Rivera agreed. Which puts us in a difficult position. Tiana leaned forward slightly. The difficult position is the one I was in yesterday, being pulled over without cause, treated with suspicion, and nearly subjected to an illegal search. All while 8 months pregnant, Rivera nodded slowly. I understand, and I want to assure you that we're taking this very seriously. I'd like to see the dash cam footage, Tiana said. Of course, Rivera replied, though something in his tone suggested reluctance. He turned to his computer, clicked a few times, then swiveled the monitor so Tiana could see. The video started with Reynolds' patrol car following Tiana's sedan. Despite Reynolds' claim of erratic driving, her car moved steadily in its lane, signaled properly for lane changes, and maintained a consistent speed. When the lights came on, she pulled over promptly and correctly. Then came the approach. On camera, Reynolds' hand was clearly near his weapon as he walked up to her window. His posture was tense, almost aggressive. The audio kicked in halfway through his approach. License and registration, his voice crackled through the speakers, lacking any greeting or explanation for the stop. Tiana watched the entire interaction unfold from this new perspective. The video confirmed everything she remembered. Reynolds' increasingly hostile tone, his skepticism about her work, his unjustified attempt to search her vehicle. What the video captured that she hadn't fully registered at the time was his body language, how he had positioned himself, how his hand had repeatedly moved to his weapon. When the footage showed her revealing her FBI credentials, Reynolds' reaction was clear, shock followed quickly by alarm. The arrival of Lieutenant Garcia and their hushed conversation played out, though their exact words were difficult to make out. The video ended shortly after Captain Rivera arrived on scene. Tiana sat back in her chair, her hand instinctively moving to her belly as the baby kicked. That's quite clear, she said quietly. Rivera turned the monitor back toward himself. Yes, it is, he sighed. Agent Jackson, I want to apologize on behalf of the department. This type of conduct doesn't reflect our standards or training. I appreciate that, Tiana said, but an apology isn't enough. I want to know what actions will be taken. Officer Reynolds will face disciplinary proceedings, Rivera assured her. I've already referred the matter to Internal Affairs. Good, Tiana nodded. I'd still like to file my formal complaint. For the record, Rivera pushed a form across the desk. Of course. As Tiana began filling out the paperwork, a knock came at the door. Rivera called for the person to enter, and Lieutenant Garcia stepped in. Sorry to interrupt, Captain, Garcia said, nodding politely to Tiana. But there's a situation that needs your attention. Can it wait? Rivera asked. It's the commissioner, Garcia replied meaningfully. About this matter. Rivera's expression tightened. I see. Excuse me, Agent Jackson. I'll be right back. After they left, Tiana continued with her complaint form, describing the incident in clear, factual terms. She was just finishing when her phone rang. Director Chen. Jackson, she answered. Where are you? Chen's voice was clipped. We have the briefing on Wilson in 15 minutes. I'm at the Central Precinct, Tiana explained. Filing a complaint. There was an incident yesterday. I know about the incident, Chen interrupted. I got a call from Police Commissioner Hartley this morning. Tiana frowned. Already? I'm just filing the complaint now. Word travels fast when an FBI agent accuses a cop of racial profiling, Chen said dryly. Especially when that agent is on a sensitive corruption case involving city officials. The implication was clear. Tiana closed her eyes briefly. Director, this isn't about the Wilson case. This is about an officer who abused his authority. I'm not saying drop it, Chen replied. I'm saying be aware of the timing and the optics. And get back to the office as soon as you can. We need you on Wilson. The call ended just as Rivera returned, his expression now carefully blank. Everything all right? Tiana asked, though she could guess what the situation had been. Fine, Rivera said, taking his seat again. Have you completed the form? Tiana slid it across the desk. Yes, and I'd like a copy for my records. Rivera nodded, took the form to a copier in the corner of his office, and returned with her copy. Agent Jackson, I want to assure you that this complaint will be fully investigated. I'm sure it will, Tiana replied, tucking the copy into her bag. Especially with the commissioner's attention on it. Rivera's expression flickered. News travels fast. It does when people want to control the narrative, Tiana stood. Thank you for your time, Captain. As she made her way back through the bullpen, she spotted Reynolds watching her, his expression now openly hostile. Beside him stood an older officer Tiana hadn't seen before, who was speaking to Reynolds in low tones. The older man looked up as she passed, his gaze calculating. Outside, Tiana took a deep breath of fresh air. The morning sun had grown stronger, promising another hot day. She checked her watch. She could still make the Wilson briefing if she hurried. As she walked to her car, she noticed a patrol officer leaning against it, arms crossed. It wasn't Reynolds, but a woman about Tiana's age with lieutenant bars on her uniform. The nameplate read Washington. Agent Jackson? The woman asked, straightening as Tiana approached. Yes? Tiana kept her tone neutral, unsure what to expect. Lieutenant Alicia Washington. The officer introduced herself. Community Relations Division. How can I help you, Lieutenant? Washington glanced around, then lowered her voice. I heard about what happened with Reynolds. It's not the first time. Tiana's attention sharpened. No. He has 3 similar complaints in his file, all dismissed for lack of evidence. Washington's expression was grim. But none of those people had a badge or dash cam footage to back them up. Why are you telling me this? Tiana asked carefully. Because I've been trying to clean up this department from the inside for years, Washington replied. And you might actually have the leverage to make something stick. Tiana studied the other woman's face, looking for signs of deception. She saw only determination and perhaps a hint of weariness. What do you suggest? Tiana asked. Don't let them bury this, Washington said. They'll try to make it go away quietly. Transfer Reynolds to a desk job for a few months, maybe some sensitivity training. Then back to business as usual. Push for real consequences. Tiana nodded slowly. I intend to. Good. Washington handed Tiana a business card. If you need anything, backup information, whatever, call me. As Washington walked away, Tiana looked down at the card, then at the police station behind her. What had started as a simple traffic stop was growing more complicated by the minute. Her phone buzzed with a text from Director Chen. Where are you? Briefing starting. Tiana got into her car, placing both Rivera's copy of her complaint and Washington's card carefully in her work bag. The Wilson corruption case awaited her attention. But now she had another battle to fight, one that had become unexpectedly personal. As she drove toward the FBI field office, Tiana couldn't shake the feeling that these 2 cases, the official corruption investigation and her personal complaint against Reynolds, might be more connected than she initially thought. The Wilson case briefing room was packed when Tiana arrived. She slipped into a seat at the back, hoping to avoid drawing attention, but Director Chen spotted her immediately. Nice of you to join us, Agent Jackson, Chen said, her tone making it clear she wasn't pleased with Tiana's tardiness. We were just discussing the connection between Councilman Wilson and the downtown development project. Tiana nodded, trying to refocus on work. The whiteboard at the front of the room was covered with photos, names, and connecting lines, a visual map of the corruption they were investigating. Councilman Wilson's photo was in the center, connected to various property developers, city officials, and, interestingly, the police commissioner. Agent Rodriguez was presenting when Tiana entered. As I was saying, we've tracked 3 separate payments from Blue Sky Development to an offshore account linked to Wilson. Each payment coincided with a city council vote on zoning changes that benefited Blue Sky. What about the connection to the police department? Another agent asked. Rodriguez pointed to a line connecting Commissioner Hartley to Wilson. We know they're golf buddies and that Hartley's brother-in-law works for Blue Sky. What we don't have is clear evidence of Hartley's involvement in the scheme. Tiana studied the board, her mind making connections between the case and her morning at the police station. Commissioner Hartley had been quick to call about her complaint. Was that just damage control or something more? The briefing continued for another hour, with agents discussing surveillance reports, financial trails, and interview strategies. Tiana took notes mechanically, But her thoughts kept drifting back to the dash cam footage, to Reynolds' hostile face, to Lieutenant Washington's warning. When the meeting finally ended, Director Chen beckoned Tiana to stay behind. "Tell me about this complaint," Chen said once they were alone, perching on the edge of the conference table. At 52, Chen was a 20-year FBI veteran with a reputation for being tough, but fair. Tiana recounted the traffic stop and her visit to the station that morning. Chen listened without interrupting, her expression neutral. "And you think this was racial profiling?" Chen asked when Tiana finished. "I know it was," Tiana replied firmly. "The dashcam footage backs me up. He had no cause to stop me, let alone try to search my car." Chen nodded slowly. "I believe you. But you need to understand the position this puts us in." "With respect, Director, I don't see how my personal experience affects the Bureau." "Because nothing is truly personal when you carry a badge," Chen said. "You're filing a complaint against a police department we need cooperation from for the Wilson case, a department headed by Commissioner Hartley, who may be involved in the corruption we're investigating." Tiana hadn't considered that angle. "So you think my complaint could compromise the case?" "I think the timing is problematic," Chen replied carefully. "Hartley called me personally this morning to express concern about an FBI agent making unfounded accusations against his officers." "They're not unfounded," Tiana said, feeling her temper rise. "There's video evidence." "I know." Chen held up a hand. "I'm not saying drop it. I'm saying be careful. If Hartley is dirty, he might use this situation to discredit you, and by extension, our whole investigation." The baby kicked as if emphasizing Chen's point. Tiana placed a hand on her belly, thinking. "What would you suggest?" she finally asked. "Keep working the Wilson case as assigned," Chen said. "Pursue your complaint through proper channels, but keep me informed of every development. And watch your back. If Reynolds targeted you once, he or someone else might try again." The warning sent a chill through Tiana. "You think they'd go that far?" "I think millions of dollars in development deals create powerful motivations," Chen said grimly, "and I think you need to be careful." After leaving Chen's office, Tiana spent the afternoon reviewing financial records related to the Wilson case. The work was detailed and absorbing, but part of her mind remained alert to her surroundings. She found herself checking who entered the office suite, watching reflections in her computer screen, aware in a new way of her vulnerability. At 5 o'clock, her phone rang, an unknown number. "Agent Jackson," she answered cautiously. "It's Lieutenant Washington." The police officer's voice was hushed. "Can you meet me? There's something you should see." Tiana hesitated, remembering Chen's warning. "What is it?" "Not over the phone," Washington insisted. "The coffee shop at Westview and Pine. 30 minutes. Come alone." The line went dead before Tiana could respond. She stared at her phone, weighing her options. This could be valuable information or a trap. She decided to take precautions. She texted her husband. "Working late. Meeting a contact about that traffic stop. We'll check in by 6:30. Then she messaged Agent Rodriguez asking him to track her phone location for the next 2 hours and to send backup if she didn't check in. The coffee shop was busy when Tiana arrived, which was reassuring. She spotted Washington at a corner table, out of uniform in jeans and a plain blue shirt. Tiana ordered a decaf tea, then joined the lieutenant. "Thanks for coming," Washington said, sliding a thin folder across the table. "Take a look." Inside were copies of 3 complaint forms against Officer Reynolds, dated over the past 18 months. The details varied, but the pattern was clear. Black drivers pulled over for minor or non-existent violations, subjected to aggressive questioning, and in 2 cases, vehicle searches. All 3 complaints had been dismissed after internal review. "Where did you get these?" Tiana asked quietly. "I have friends in internal affairs," Washington replied. "These are technically confidential, but I thought you should know what you're up against." Tiana studied the complaints. All dismissed for insufficient evidence. Even though 2 had witnesses, Washington nodded. "Reynolds has protection from somewhere. His uncle is a retired deputy chief, but I think it's more than that." "What do you mean?" Washington leaned forward. In the past year, Reynolds has been assigned to patrol specific neighborhoods, all areas where the city is planning redevelopment, areas where they need people to move out or sell cheap. The connection to the Wilson case clicked in Tiana's mind. And aggressive policing makes people uncomfortable, more likely to leave. Exactly, Washington said. I can't prove it, but I think Reynolds is doing exactly what certain people want him to do, harassing residents in areas targeted for development, including pregnant FBI agents. Tiana raised an eyebrow. That was probably his mistake, Washington admitted. Your neighborhood isn't on the development list. My guess is he saw a black woman driving a nice car and fell back on old habits. The theory made sense, but it needed evidence. Do you have anything connecting Reynolds to Commissioner Hartley or Councilman Wilson? Washington's eyes widened slightly. Wilson? The one being investigated for corruption? She studied Tiana's face. That's your case, isn't it? The FBI investigation everyone's whispering about. Tiana kept her expression neutral. I can't comment on ongoing investigations. You don't need to, Washington said. Your interest just confirmed it. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through some photos, and showed one to Tiana. This was taken 3 months ago at a police charity golf tournament. That's Reynolds in the background, caddy for the commissioner's foursome. The photo showed Commissioner Hartley, Councilman Wilson, and 2 men Tiana recognized as prominent developers, all in golf attire. And there, carrying a golf bag, was Officer Reynolds. A coincidence, maybe, Washington said. Or maybe Reynolds is more connected than his rank suggests. Tiana took a photo of the image with her phone. This is helpful, but I need more to connect the dots. I'm working on it, Washington promised. But you should know, word is that your complaint has people nervous. Captain Rivera was called to the commissioner's office right after you left this morning. And when he came back, the internal investigation into Reynolds was reassigned to Lieutenant Foster, the commissioner's nephew. Tiana sighed. So they're already trying to bury it. They don't know about the dashcam footage being copied, Washington said with a small smile. I made sure of that before the original could accidentally get corrupted. You copied it? Tiana was impressed by the lieutenant's foresight. Washington nodded. It's on this. She slid a small USB drive across the table. The unedited version, including parts they'll probably try to claim were damaged in the system. Tiana pocketed the drive. Why are you doing this? It's a risk to your career. Washington's expression hardened. Because I joined the force to protect people, not to harass them. Because I've watched good cops leave and bullies like Reynolds thrive. And because sometimes you need to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. The conviction in her voice reminded Tiana why she'd joined the FBI. For justice, for fairness, for protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. I should go, Washington said, checking her watch. We shouldn't be seen together too much. As they parted outside the coffee shop, Tiana felt both encouraged by the new information and burdened by its implications. The connection between her complaint and the Wilson case was becoming clearer and more dangerous. Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband. Everything okay? On my way home, she replied. Got some new information. We'll tell you everything there. As she drove, Tiana kept checking her mirrors, a new wariness making her hyper-alert. The stakes had just gotten much higher, and she knew that both her personal quest for justice and her professional investigation were now irrevocably intertwined. 3 weeks had passed since the traffic stop, and Tiana's life had transformed in ways she hadn't expected. Her desk at the FBI office was buried under case files, not just for the Wilson investigation, but also the growing evidence connecting the corrupt councilman to Commissioner Hartley and several officers, including Reynolds. What had started as a personal complaint had blossomed into a full branch of the corruption investigation. Director Chen had assigned 2 additional agents to help Tiana after seeing the evidence Lieutenant Washington provided. You look tired, Agent Rodriguez said, placing a cup of herbal tea on her desk. At 35, Rodriguez had been with the Bureau for 10 years and had become Tiana's right hand on the expanded investigation. Thanks, Tiana said, sipping the tea gratefully. Baby kept me up half the night. Apparently my ribs make excellent soccer practice targets. Rodriguez smiled. My sister said the same thing when she was pregnant. You sure you don't want to start maternity leave early? No one would blame you. Tiana shook her head. Not until we've secured these indictments. I've come too far to step away now. Her determination had only grown stronger since discovering that Reynolds' aggressive policing tactics were part of a larger scheme. The evidence trail showed that certain neighborhoods were deliberately over-policed to pressure residents into selling their homes at below-market rates to developers connected to Councilman Wilson. Commissioner Hartley ensured the right officers were assigned to these areas. Officers like Reynolds who wouldn't question their orders and who enjoyed flexing their authority. Tiana's complaint against Reynolds hadn't been buried as Lieutenant Washington had feared. Instead, it had triggered a series of events that exposed the entire network. The dashcam footage became just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Her phone buzzed with a text from Washington. Press conference scheduled for 2 p.m. You watching? Wouldn't miss it, Tiana texted back. At 1:55, she and several other agents gathered in the conference room where a TV was tuned to the local news channel. The press conference had been called by the mayor's office after the FBI provided evidence of the corruption scheme to city officials the previous day. The mayor appeared on screen, looking appropriately grave as he approached the podium. Behind him stood several city officials, including the district attorney and, notably not Commissioner Hartley. Good afternoon, the mayor began. Today is a difficult day for our city. It is with deep regret that I must announce that several city officials and police department members have been implicated in a corruption investigation. Federal indictments are being issued as I speak. He went on to outline the scheme in broad terms, how certain officials had abused their positions for personal gain, how development deals had been manipulated, and how some police officers had been used to pressure residents in targeted neighborhoods. While I cannot name individuals at this time due to the ongoing legal process, I want to assure our citizens that this administration is committed to rooting out corruption wherever it exists. We are cooperating fully with federal authorities. As the mayor continued, Tiana felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Justice was being served, but the scope of the corruption was disheartening. Public trust would take years to rebuild. Agent Jackson, Director Chen appeared in the doorway. A word, please. Tiana followed Chen back to her office where a man in a Justice Department suit was waiting. This is AUSA Thompson, Chen introduced him. He's leading the prosecution team for the Wilson case. Thompson stood to shake Tiana's hand. Agent Jackson, outstanding work. Your investigation is rock solid. Thank you, sir, Tiana said. But it was a team effort. A team you built, Thompson pointed out. Starting with your own complaint. That took courage. Tiana nodded, accepting the compliment. What happens next? We've secured federal indictments for Councilman Wilson, Commissioner Hartley, and 5 other officials, Thompson explained. Plus 3 officers, including Reynolds. The arrests are happening simultaneously as we speak. The news was better than Tiana had hoped for. All 3 officers? Reynolds, Foster, and Cruz, Thompson confirmed. The evidence you gathered with Lieutenant Washington was critical, especially those patrol assignments correlated with the development zones, Chen added. The mayor has asked the state to appoint an interim police commissioner while they conduct a department-wide review. Any word on who that might be? Tiana asked. Chen and Thompson exchanged glances. Early word is it might be Captain Rivera, Chen said. He cooperated fully once he realized the extent of the corruption. That was unexpected. Tiana had pegged Rivera as part of the problem, but perhaps he'd simply been caught in the middle, unwilling to rock the boat until he had federal backing. And Lieutenant Washington? Tiana asked. Being considered for a promotion to head the new Internal Affairs Division, Thompson said with a small smile. Her assistance was invaluable. The baby kicked hard and Tiana winced, placing a hand on her belly. You all right? Chen asked, concerned. Fine, Tiana assured her. Just an active little one today. Speaking of which, Chen said, with the indictment secured, I think it's time you started your maternity leave. You've more than earned it. Tiana started to protest but realized Chen was right. The case had reached its turning point and her due date was just 2 weeks away. I'll wrap up my notes this afternoon. Back at her desk, Tiana began organizing her files for Rodriguez to take over. As she worked, her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. "Agent Jackson," she answered. "Agent Jackson, this is Officer Reynolds' attorney, David Stein." The voice was smooth, professional. "I'm calling to discuss a potential resolution to your complaint." Tiana's guard went up immediately. "Mr. Stein, your client has been indicted on federal charges. I don't think there's much to discuss. My client is prepared to provide testimony against Commissioner Hartley and others in exchange for consideration," Stein pressed. He was following orders, after all. "Just following orders," Tiana repeated flatly. "Does that include racially profiling me and attempting an illegal search of my vehicle?" There was a pause. "Agent Jackson, everyone would benefit from keeping certain details out of the public eye. The department doesn't need further embarrassment, and I'm sure you don't want to be in the spotlight either. Pregnant FBI agent, big public trial. The media would have a field day." The implied threat was clear. Cooperate with a plea deal or become a public spectacle. Tiana felt her temper rising but kept her voice steady. "Mr. Stein, let me be very clear. I filed my complaint because your client abused his authority. That complaint led to evidence of wider corruption, which is why he's now facing federal charges. If Officer Reynolds wants to cooperate with prosecutors, that's between him and the U.S. Attorney's Office. But don't call me again suggesting I should be concerned about public attention. I'm not the one who broke the law." She ended the call before Stein could respond, her heart pounding. The attorney's tactics were transparent, using intimidation to protect his client. It was the same pattern of behavior that had allowed the corruption to flourish in the first place. Her desk phone rang. The reception desk. "Agent Jackson, there's someone here to see you." "A Lieutenant Washington." Tiana was surprised. "Send her back." Washington appeared a moment later in full uniform, her expression a mix of excitement and exhaustion. "Have you heard? They're actually doing it. Cleaning house at the department." "I heard," Tiana said, gesturing for Washington to sit. "Congratulations on the potential promotion." "Nothing's official yet," Washington demurred. "But that's not why I came. I wanted to thank you in person. Your complaint was the pebble that started the avalanche." "I just did what anyone should do," Tiana said. Washington shook her head. "But most people don't. They stay quiet, afraid of the consequences. You spoke up even knowing it might complicate your career." "I had an advantage," Tiana pointed out. "The FBI badge carries weight." "Which is exactly why you risked more by filing that complaint," Washington countered. "You put your professional reputation on the line." Tiana considered this. "Maybe. But I keep thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't been an agent. If I'd just been another black woman pulled over by Reynolds." "That's why this matters so much," Washington said quietly. "For all the people who don't have badges to protect them." They sat in silence for a moment. Two women in law enforcement, who understood both the power and responsibility of their positions. "So what's next for you?" Washington finally asked. "After the baby, I mean." Tiana smiled, her hand resting on her belly. "Maternity leave first, then back to work. There's always more to do. And Reynolds? His lawyer called me too, trying the same intimidation tactics." "Let the prosecutors handle him," Tiana advised. "Our job was to bring the truth to light. We've done that." As Washington left, Tiana turned back to her desk, preparing to hand over her cases. Her computer chimed with a new email. A department-wide message from Director Chen announcing the successful operation and the impending indictments. At the bottom was a personal note. "Agent Jackson, your courage and integrity exemplify the best of the Bureau. What began as a personal stand for justice expanded into one of our most significant corruption cases. As you prepare for maternity leave, know that your work has made this city safer not just for your child, but for all its citizens." Tiana smiled, feeling the baby shift beneath her hand. In just 2 weeks, she'd welcome her child into the world, a world that, while still imperfect, was at least a little more just because she'd refused to stay silent. As she packed up her desk, she thought about the unexpected chain of events set in motion by that traffic stop. One moment of injustice confronted had led to a wave of accountability. It wasn't a complete victory, systems didn't change overnight, but it was a meaningful step forward. And sometimes, that was enough.